Tom, I've been so looking forward to hear your takes on today's big stories. First of all, you are one of our great constitutional scholars. You've followed this for decades. Have you ever seen a judge be so proactive as was Judge Galeazzatos, today on Bill 96?
Well, Judge Galeazzatos has been serving notice about this for a certain time, and he finally acted. So it didn't come out of the blue. Now, our justice minister seemed to have been caught off guard by it, but he shouldn't have been. Because, by the way, the answer that we got from our justice minister simply didn't make any sense. He said, well, the Supreme Court has no trouble coming out with decisions. Sorry, that's not at trial level. This is about the right, the constitutionally guaranteed right, recently reiterated by the Supreme Court of Canada in throwing out a case where that right had been refused in Alberta, in BC, saying, no, this is an absolute right in Canada. So what happens here is Quebec larded on the requirement under Bill 96 to have an immediate translation available before you can come out with it. Now, there are two problems with that. One, it does delay the person's right to a trial in a reasonable time, as set down in the Jordan Principle. So there's actually a risk with Bill 96 that we're going to see even more cases thrown out. And this is where the judge is coming in saying it's not only that, but it's also removing a constitutionally hard and fast right of the person who is accused to have their trial in the language of their choice. And no, you can impose upon me the obligation to, if you want to have resources available where this gets translated instantaneously, fill your boots. But that's not what's happening here in Quebec. There are no resources for that. It's not being done in a reasonable time, and it is depriving an accused of their constitutionally guaranteed right to have a trial in English in Quebec, and good on the judge for saying that in so many words today.
Doesn't this focus more attention on how poorly the justice system is run in Quebec by the Legault government than anything else? I mean, when you read the decision, this could be solved by just putting in the resources to have simultaneous translation.
Of course.
So instead, Jolin Barrette and Legault are going to try to make a big, kerfuffle over this. But at the end of the day, if we had a modern day system, this would not be an issue, correct?
Hey, David, you work in one of Montreal's biggest law firms.
I do.
You work over at Fasken. You've got a whole translation department
we do.
In-house, and you've got a whole roster of stringers, outside people who can be brought in a push. If you have a signing the next morning, even if you've got a 300-page document, you know what? It's going to be ready in the other language. It doesn't really matter. And so this is where they're getting it so wrong. It's just the constant denial. And to your first point, I don't think it's something that we look at nearly enough. Everybody knows that when you've got mold and mildew in the walls in a school, and you've got operating rooms that can't even operate because we don't have the resources. Everybody gets it for our school system, our whole education system falling apart, and of course our health and social system falling apart. But that's because everybody has a kid or a friend, or they know about schools. Everybody's been into a hospital, or they have a friend everybody knows those two systems and everything that's wrong with them. The justice system, for most Quebecers, and that's a good thing, it's not something that they're in contact with. So they don't think about it as much. But which of those three is the backbone of our democracy? It's the rule of law. It's a society where you have to respect the law, and if you don't, there will be consequences. There's enforcement. There's a judge to interpret the law, to apply it. All of those things are falling apart just as much as the schools and the hospitals in Quebec, but we don't talk about it nearly enough, and good for you for bringing that up right off the top.
Well, because you mention often, your work that you do on the French side with TVA and LCN.
Oh, everybody was lighting their hair on fire.
Really?
Another attack against Quebec. I was on like 15 minutes ago with Matthew Buckcote about this on the air on LCN, and he said it is another example of English neocolonialism.
Really?
Yeah, 15 minutes ago.
My goodness. It's incredible because, again, this is a fundamental right. There's several fundamental rights at play. One, you're allowed to have your trial in one of the two official languages. But two, the Jordan ruling is an interpretation of the charter. And so you have the right to a speedy trial. And so why not just respect that? If you want everything in French, then do what you need to do to respect it. We're still doing paper files at the courthouse. It's ridiculous. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm taking your time.
It's sort of like the faxes.
Exactly.
In our health system.
Exactly.
We're still living in 1985.
Exactly. So true. So true. Let's move on to Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon. Now, we were looking at the ad yesterday. It was in French, and we talked about it. Now, here it is in English.
Yeah.
What's your angle? What do you think Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is trying to do here?
Well, I think that one of the things that's often missing in any political discussion in Quebec is the English-speaking community of Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he knows as well as you and I do that the vast majority of people in the English community will never vote yes in a referendum, but there are some people who will. And he's showing that it's an important element, and he's speaking English to the English-speaking community. When François Legault, or even worse, Jean-François Roberge, go on and change the laws and change the rules, and it always affects the English-speaking community, but they never speak with the English-speaking community. They never include it in any of their deliberations. It's not part of their thinking. We're just something to be batted around. Mm-hmm. So at least PSPP, to use his nickname, mm-hmm. is doing something. He's reaching out. He's got a message. You can agree with it or not agree with it, but at least he's including the English-speaking community. And if you go back historically, there were small-ish attempts mm-hmm. During the first, during the two referenda to include the community. Mm-hmm. PQ has never spent a lot of money advertising to the English community. Let's not kid ourselves. Mm-hmm. But at least these things are made relatively cheap. Once you've got all of the images there, all you have to do is reshoot the sound for the voiceover, and he at least did that, and good for him.
The soundtrack, though, that music. Everybody's talking about that music. I think they got John Williams, the Star Wars guy.
Well, I mean, look, we can joke about them until the cows come home, but if you look at Quebec Solidaire, mm-hmm. it's finally got full party status in the National Assembly. It's mm-hmm. got its 10 members. They worked so hard to get Cliche Rivard elected once Dominic Anglade stepped down. And the PQ's only got 4 members. They just got their 4th in that now famous by-election in Jean Talon riding in Quebec City. But with 4 members, man, they're kicking butt right now. So I think that a part of it is the simple fact that the Liberals don't exist because mm-hmm. they don't have a leader. Sure. Mark Tanguay's doing an admirable mm-hmm. job for somebody who doesn't have much authority, and is not able to run himself. But once they go. Wait till they start their leadership race, and that'll start warming up in the fall, and then they'll have the official race, and then they'll finally have a leader, and then the numbers are going to completely start to change. I know for a fact that Quebecers do not want what Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is selling. It's not just English-speaking Quebecers. If you look at consistent polling over the years, 33% plus or minus 2%. Mm. 1/3 of Quebecers are willing to say, let's get out of here, that we want to leave Canada. No more than that. And it's the other 2/3 that are going to decide whether or not they actually give a mandate to Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and the PQ to come back and wreak havoc on the province, on our history, on our ability to deal with others. He's just selling something that doesn't make any sense. We're giving all this money to Ottawa, we get nothing in return. No, you don't get direct services because guess what? Education and health, those are provincial jurisdictions. But everything else, from the seaway to the roads, to the railroads, everything in between, that's the federal government. And so you're going to have a Quebec army, and you're going to have to pay for this stuff one way or the other. And François Legault had a moment of lucidity last week when he said Quebec gets $10 billion more than what we pay in, full stop. And you know what? I think that PSPP will never acknowledge that.